design options are a really powerful feature of the product, because what this will let you do is try out different layouts for the building. It doesn't matter if the building is created by assembling activities or just by drafting activities in the project. The idea is that you won't lose the data that you assign to the activities for individual options if you create them in the first place. So what I'm saying is, rather than making one model and then producing a report, you could actually create multiple alternative design options. And when you assign a value to the surface of that option, say you say this surface has 20% glass, but in another design option it has 40% glass, it'll remember the assignments that you made for the particular option that you're working with. And you won't have to recreate it because you've got it stored in your project. So really what we're doing here is giving yourself some flexibility in that you can model alternative layouts, but maybe more importantly that any settings that you apply to those layouts will be remembered, so that you can come back and revisit them at a future time and don't have to recreate work that you've already finished. It's at this early stage of design that you actually want to explore design options. You might be doing this in the form of handmade models, but you can do it with digital models like in Vasari. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to the Design Options tab. It's under Analyze, Design Options. I'm going to say, give me an option set. Now typically this is going to be for one variable at a time. In other words, I might want to explore layout. I might want to explore percentage glazing, orientation, something like that. So if I pick on the option set one here, I'll rename this and I'll call it layout. And then I can create any number of options that I want. So option 1, option 2, I might be a little more specific about what they are if I rename it and call it single level. And this one I'm going to rename and call it stacked classrooms, something like that. So at the moment, if I select something that's here, I just drew them in the project. If I select it and I look on the properties, you'll see that it says it's on the main model. And that's the same for everything that's there at the moment. It's on the main model. Well, typically the main model are the site components that are not going to be changing, things like existing buildings or trees. So in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, holding the control key, select the two trees, and then what I'm going to do is temporarily switch them off. So I'll just say hide those elements. And that was so that I could quickly grab the other parts of my model here. Let me hold the shift key and select the plane I don't need. Hold on, let me just do this again. So I'm going to drag around, grab those objects and hold the control and select the corridor. I've got all of the objects that are displayed here. And now what I'm going to do is under the Analyze tab, I'm going to go and say add those two sets, the option 1, option 2, or as we called them, single level and stacked classrooms. So I'm actually copying them from the main model level down to the level of an option. It might not be obvious just yet, but if I turn on the display of the site components again, and I were to select them, you'll see in the properties palette that it says main model. You'll also notice that I can't select the other objects because they're no longer on the main level. If I look at this kind of tree structure I've got and I go down to the single level primary, then there are my objects that I moved to that level, but you notice now that I can't select on the trees because they're at the main model level. So if I go down one more level, which was my stacked classrooms, I'm going to make some changes in here. Let me just, for the sake of speed, I'm just going to delete these solar panels. And what I'm thinking is I want to explore an option where I say, let me just turn this a little bit so you can see it. Under the Modify tab, I'm going to say, let me align to the top of that classroom, the bottom of this classroom, and to the face of the adjacent activity, that face. I'm stacking them up, and then I'm going to do the same thing here by saying to that face, I'm going to hit my tab key, and then to the face here, this. So I'm actually kind of moving them around, and then I can adjust my, that would be like maybe 170, I think is the right, adjusting my corridor back to the end there. So now what I've got is actually two options. Let me just correct this last part. I'm going to right click on this and say create similar, and I'm making sure I'm saying place on face. Remember how that works. And I'll maybe place some solar panels on the top of my roofs here, and then I'm going to delete this one. So the point is that if I now look in my model and I go back to my Analyze tab, if I'm looking at the level of the main model, I'm seeing the main model, site components plus the option 1. If I look at the level of the stacked classrooms like that, I'm looking at the main level, but with this different arrangement for my activities.